What's up guys, it's NDC bringing you my Crown Sorcerer build part 1. Now, what I'm going for in this build is a durable cannon. Alright, there's a lot of builds out there that are strictly DPS and they have okay defense, but if they really get caught up in a fight, they're really going to go down if they don't take their opponent down fast enough. So I don't like the glass cannon build, so I've turned my build into an iron cannon. I call it my Crown Sorcerer build because I'm usually leading big groups of people in PvP, and this allows me to stay alive long enough to successfully give appropriate instructions on what to do and all this other stuff. And this also allows me, if I do get caught up by myself, I can still hold my own and take down people in a 1v1 or 2v1 or so on and so on. Now, this is a work in progress. I'm only a V5, so all of these stats will eventually change in the future. And I'll do a couple of other videos just to keep everyone updated to what I've changed about my sorcerer, what has gotten better, and what I took off. So for now, my DPS is decent. It's not the best, but it's not the lowest either. My spell damage is at 1344 and my weapon damage is at 1368. But what really matters for this build is my spell resistance and my physical resistance. At 15k and 12k, those are really good for sorcerers. Being as sorcerers are supposed to be super crazy high DPS, but really squishy. Now, I'm an all magical build, so I have all 53 points that I have so far in my magicka. My health is pretty low at 14k, but it really doesn't matter simply because my spell resistance and my physical resistance is ridiculous, on top of the skills that I have to give myself extra armor and protection against assaults. My stamina is at 0 as well. It's at 8900. That's super low, but like I said, this is a pure magicka build, so you're really not going to ever use your stamina except for when you're CC breaking and rolling. So other than that, you're really not going to need stamina ever at all. Let's go into the skills. On my DPS, I use dual wields. Dual wields going to give you a lot more spell damage simply because your spell damage goes off of your weapon's damage. So if you have two weapons in your hand, obviously you're going to get more spell damage. So the first skill I have is my Crystal Frag. You'll find that in Dark Magic. Now Crystal Frag is morphed, so it gives it you get that 35% chance of making it an instant cast instead of a hard cast. And when you do it as an instant cast, you're doing 20% more damage and the cast costs 50% less magicka. So you're initially hitting someone for 5k damage unbuffed, and you're knocking them down for about 2.4 seconds. Now the 2.4 second knockdown can be CC broken at any time, but they're still going to get knocked down on their ass regardless. And if they do CC break it, if it's a stamina build, they're kind of stupid because all they're doing is wasting stamina. My next attack on here is Mage's Wrath. You'll find that in Storm Calling. Mage's Wrath is it's not the best ability, but if you know how to use it right, it can really be a powerhouse. Initially, it does 1200 shock damage. But after you tag someone with Mage's Light, you have 4 seconds to get their health below 20%. Once they hit that 20% mark, they take an additional 4k damage, and anyone around them is going to take 1700 shock damage AoE. Now my next attack on here is Degeneration. You'll find that in the Mage's Guild. Now Degeneration is pretty good too. They're going to take, once you tag someone with Degeneration, they're going to take 3k magic damage over 12 seconds. And it's going to be instant. You're going to automatically get 900 health back, plus another 900 for 6 seconds over 12 seconds. So you're initially getting about 2700 health back over the 12 seconds that you're fighting this person. If it's a 1v1 with this build, the fight's not going to last 12 seconds. But if it does, then those extra health ticks are really going to help. Once you tag someone with Degeneration, you're giving yourself a 20% spell damage boost. So as a caster, that 20% boost is going to help out a lot. So usually Degeneration is going to be, you're going to want that to be the first attack you use once you get into a fight. The second attack I use is one of the another curse. It's one of the 3 curses that we use, Degeneration being one, and Velocious Curse being the next one. You'll find that in Daedric Summoning. Once you tag someone with Velocious Curse, they're going to take 4,000 damage, magic damage, after about 3.5 seconds. And then an additional 2,000 magic damage to enemies anywhere near them. So they're going to take that 4,000 damage, and then they're going to be doing 2k damage AoE to any one of their buddies that are trying to help them out. So that's really good, especially with the 20% buff you get from Degeneration. It's going to do a lot of damage. If anything, it's going to take down a shield. Now, the last active ability on here I have besides my ultimate is in the Assault, and it's Inevitable Detonation. Now, Inevitable Detonation is my favorite. It has a cast time of 1.8 seconds, but it's definitely worth it. It's gonna set you up for that finisher. Alright, so you tag someone with Degeneration, get that 20% buff, hit them with the Velocious Curse, and then while you're waiting for Velocious Curse to hit, then you go ahead and put in your Inevitable Detonation. Now, Inevitable Detonation, once you successfully pop it off, they're going to take 5,000 damage after about 4 seconds. And that's an AoE attack, so anyone around them is also going to take that exact same 5,000 damage. And this damage goes up by 10% for each enemy within the bomb, up to 50%. So if there's 5 other guys near him, they're all going to take 5,000 damage plus an extra 50% of that damage. Now that's it for the active abilities on my DPS besides my ultimate. My ultimate is going to change here. I'm just waiting for one of my other skills to level up enough for me to get it. But for now I'm using my Soul Assault, and that's in the Soul Magic. Soul Assault is probably tied with the strongest ultimate in the game, hands down. I mean, unbuffed, it does 21k damage over 3.9 seconds and reduces your enemy's speed by 70%. It has a range of 28 meters, so you can literally stand on top of a keep wall and tag your opponent that's on the ground and sit there and watch his health burn away, and their speed is going to go down by 70%. So if someone's getting hit by an attack that's that strong and their health is just melting away super fast like that, the first instinct is to get away, and your speed is going to be lowered by 70%. So getting away is kind of, you know, out of the option bars for that. So buffed up with Degeneration and other spell damage buffs that go along with your armor and your weapons and everything, that is going to be some insane damage. And that's usually what I finish with. So I'll set up with a Degeneration, I'll cast a Velocious Curse, and that'll set them up for Inevitable Detonation. Once I have Inevitable Detonation, I'll start spamming Mage's Fury until I can proc a frag. And then once I have the frag procced, I'll send it out right at the same time as an Inevitable Detonation explodes. Anyone around the area is probably going to go down, but anyone still standing after that is just going to catch a Soul Assault to the face. So let's switch over to my Resto bar. Alright, on my Resto staff bar, first skill I have is Hardened Ward. You'll find that in Daedric Summoning. Now, Hardened Ward is going to give you a 6k shield for about 20 seconds. Now, it's going to give 6k shields to all of your summoned creatures that you have. But if you're in PvP, summoning creatures is kind of out of question because they're really useless. So that 6k around you is going to get a 31% buff as well. So it's going to go up. So before anyone that can actually do damage to your health, they got to get through that 6k damage shield with that 31% buff. Now my next skill on here is the Undaunted skill Necrotic Orb. Now Necrotic Orb in a 1 versus 1 is pretty much useless, but if you're fighting with a group, it's really helpful. You send out a couple of Necrotic Orbs if you have in your group Sorcerers and Nightblades that are all Magicka based, then they can activate your Necrotic Orb around enemies, causing 3k AoE damage, and then restoring them for 900 Magicka over 10 seconds, plus additional Magicka based on the number of enemies they hit with that AoE when they exploded it. The third ability I have on my bar is Daedric Mines. You'll find that in Dark Magic. Daedric mines are really helpful. Alright? You lay down mines, and even if the person doesn't activate your mines, it still gives them an obstacle that they have to work around in order to get at you. Alright, so if you're fighting someone who's more of a close combat fighter, they're kind of screwed. Alright, because they're going to have to either walk through the mines and just deal with the damage, or they're going to have to try to figure out a way to move around the mines. Each mine is going to do about 3k magic damage and immobilize your opponent for 1.8 seconds. Now, obviously they can CC break that 1.8 seconds down, but regardless, they're going to be stopped from their charge. And then if they do the CC break, it's just them wasting stamina. And that's 3k without any buffs. So if you have your buffs on, that 3k can do some serious damage. Each mine can just riddle people down to nothing. Now the next spell I have on here is the light armor. It'll be Harness Magicka. Harness Magicka is really good, especially if you're facing off against another sorcerer who also does a lot of casting. It's going to give you that 6800 spell damage shield for 20 seconds. Now, while it's up and you've morphed it to Harness Magicka, the first 3 attacks that you get that do spell damage, they're not going to hit you at all, but instead they're going to give you Magicka back. Alright, so if you're dealing with a caster and he sends out a curse, a frag, and another curse, all that's not going to do anything except for take your shield away and then return Magicka to you. So it's really helpful, especially when you're going up against Magicka-based opponents. My last active, besides my ultimate on my Resto bar, is my Ball of Lightning. That's the morph of Bolt Escape. Now you could choose either Streak or Ball of Lightning. They're both really good. I chose Ball of Lightning simply because once you have that Ball of Lightning there, you could lay down some mines and then create a Ball of Lightning and fight right next to your mines and your Ball of Lightning. The mines are going to keep the people away from you, and if they're casting, that Ball of Lightning is going to make all the projectiles go to the ball instead of you for 6 seconds. Now, one thing you got to watch out with Ball of Lightning, though, is you don't want to spam it unless you're trying to get away. If you're actually trying to fight, then you don't want to spam your Ball of Lightning, simply because every time you do it within 4 seconds, it's going to cost 50% more Magicka, so potentially you could be wasting Magicka if you spam that move. Now my ultimate on my Resto bar is my Energy Overload. That's in the Storm Calling. Energy Overload is probably one of the coolest ultimates in the game, simply because you get a 3rd bar with this ultimate, kind of like you do with the Werewolf. Now let's go into my Energy Overload bar. Alright, you'll notice that my skills changed around a little bit. Now I don't use all of these skills when I'm in my Energy Overload because I don't really use Energy Overload that much, but it really helps out if you're in a 1v1 and you really can't get someone down fast enough. Energy Overload is an ultimate that you can build up extremely fast, and then once you have it, it does crazy damage. So each light attack is going to do 6k damage, and that's unbuffed. Alright, so what I usually do is I spam my light attacks and I just keep hitting them. You can get off to up to 10 to 15 light attacks off before your ultimate actually runs out. Now for the skills I have on here, I have my Hardened Wards. That's just a shield so that way I can have a little bit of defense while I'm spamming the light attacks. And then I have Surge. Those are the main ones that I use. So Surge is going to give you that extra damage with your weapons. Now Overload, when you're using it, it's considered a weapon, so it's going to give you that 20% weapons damage for 18 seconds. And then Critical Strike can heal you for up to 40% of the damage done. So while you're hitting them for crazy amount of damage, you could potentially be getting back 40% of your health, of the damage to your health. So you just spam the light attacks and get your health back. And then each attack also is going to give you more Magicka back. So every light attack you hit and you land, you're gaining back Magicka. So potentially you could just spam your Magicka, your skills, and then go into Overload and then spam your light attacks just to regain your Magicka back so you can rinse and repeat. So now that I've showed you both my Resto bar and my DPS bar, and I've showed you what you could do with Overload, let's go into champion points. How I have my champion points set up. I have 11 on Bastion. Now, Bastion's going to increase the effectiveness of damage absorbing effects by 5.2% if you have the skills for it. Now, I'm going to continue to add skills on there until I get something that I think is useful other than that. But what that's going to do is that's going to give your shields, such as Harden Ward and Healing Ward and Harness Magicka, all these shields that you use, that's going to give them a crazy buff. Alright, now, once I do get more points, I'm probably going to put 1 point into this and 1 point into this. Because these are going to help you revive your buddies. So if you're working as a team and you want to revive people, it's kind of annoying when you're trying to revive someone and you start getting hit for a lot of damage and you can't pick them up. You gotta get away. So these points are going to help you out. These points are going to help you out with that. Next one I have is my Arcanist. Now, Arcanist is going to increase your Magicka recovery. If you're a Magicka base, that's what you're going to want. You're going to want to keep your Magicka up. You're going to always want to be full on Magicka so you can just spam your attacks like crazy. Alright? So, right now I had 10 points. That's going to give me a 5% buff on my Magicka recovery. Now, Tenacity, I just recently started putting points into that, simply because that's going to increase the amount of Magicka I get from my Resto staff and my dual wields when I do heavy attacks. Now, on here, however you pronounce that word, I'm not even going to try it. It increases the damage with poison, disease, and Magicka by 5%. Now, the poison and disease is kind of like, you know, it's okay, but the magic is what you're going to want, alright? Because all your spells are going to do magic damage. Your AoEs are going to do magic damage. So if you got that 5% buff to your magic damage, that's going to help you out a lot. So I'm going to continue to keep putting points in that. So that's it for my champion points so far. Alright, for my armor right now, I'm wearing 100% heavy armor, except for my gauntlets, which are light armor. Now, what I'm looking at in the future, I'm looking at going more light and medium armor, and then just keeping my shoulders and my head as heavy armor. Because I really want to get the Undaunted passives, and I like all the armor passives. So you're going to want to mix it up a little bit. Now, the head and shoulders are going to keep my durability up, and the mediums and lights are going to give me those Magicka buffs. So, some of the sets that I'm looking at getting are Martial Knowledge, Magnus, and Healer sets. I'm going to have, eventually I'm going to have all of those sets on me as well. So you guys can look those up for yourselves to see what they do. They give you some really good spell damage and max Magicka, and a lot of them give you good durability. So, like I said, this is a work in progress. This is only part 1 of the Crown Sorcerer build, so I hope it helped you guys out a lot. I'll see you next time on part 2.